Ghambiram Seshayya. In Hinduism, the first function of the Lord is creation. To fulfill this, Arunachala Shiva chose to create itself in the image of man, in the form of Arunachala Ramanan, that is, Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. For the second function, preservation, he sent boulders like Palani Swami and Mother Azagamal and Ramanatha Brahmachari to look after Bhagavan's body and his environment. The third function of the Lord is destruction of ignorance through the teaching of the highest wisdom. This removes all obstacles to self-realization, including the I am the body notion. To accomplish this, Arunachala drew two intellectuals to Bhagavan, Ghambiram Seshayya and Shiva Praksam Pillai. In fact, according to the Vedanta Chudamani, a Tamil book on Vedanta, which Bhagavan loved to quote, one of the most important duties of a devotee is the preservation of his master's teachings. Ghambiram Seshayya came into Bhagavan's life for this function. Bhagavan once said, Ghambiram is not his name. Ghambiram is a title given to his family. His great-grandfather was serving a king and was given the title Ghambiram, meaning majestic nobility, because of his uprightness. That became their family name. On the first or second day, Bhagavan went begging in Tiruvannamalai. He happened to stop in front of a house where 4 people were gambling with playing cards. When, as usual, he clapped his hands for food, the house owner went in and shamefacedly brought out some food for Bhagavan. This man was Gambhiram Seshayya's brother, Ghambiram Krishna Iyer. From that day, he never gambled again. Ghambiram Seshayya, a government officer, was well read in philosophy. In 1900, he was transferred to Tiruvannamalai, where he heard of an ascetic Brahmin boy who lived in Virupaksha cave. Propelled by his own philosophical interests, he paid the ascetic, none other than Bhagavan, a visit. Just one glance from Bhagavan, and Ghambiram Seshayya was captivated. He saw before him in human form all that he had studied in the scriptures and a reflection of the very truth he was seeking, the self. He had studied many books on yoga and philosophy, particularly those of Swami Vivekananda, and had many doubts still. He brought these books to Bhagavan and asked him to review them and answer his questions. He assumed that Bhagavan was observing silence. Therefore, he always wrote his doubts on a piece of paper. Bhagavan gave his answers too in writing, after looking carefully through these texts. Much later, Bhagavan humorously remarked, "They said I was in silence, though I never took a vow of silence. I never took a vow of fasting. Nobody shared food with me, so I was without food. Then they say, our Swami is fasting. Nobody talked to me, so I just kept quiet. And then they assumed that the Swami is in silence. Do not disturb his silence." Ghambiram Seshayya not only put forth excellent questions, but also requested Bhagavan to condense some complicated passages that he found difficult to grasp. Bhagavan did this too. Many subjects were discussed, and everything was explained in the light and nomenclature of the Hindu scriptures. While some of these questions were based on self-inquiry, most were on different aspects of Hindu philosophy, such as yoga, sadhana, concentration, dhyana or meditation, God, the world, ego, liberation, pranayama, and Ashtanga yoga. Of these, Ghambiram Seshayya was most interested in Ashtanga yoga. While Bhagavan did explain the intricacies of other paths, including the path of Ashtanga yoga, he never swerved from affirming jnana marga, the path of wisdom, as the direct one. In fact, Bhagavan has remarked that while yoga is like taming the turbulent bull of the mind by forcibly yoking it, the path of wisdom, jnana, is like gently taming the bull by calming it with some grass and then yoking it. Ghambiram Seshayya served to provide Bhagavan the opportunity to read books on yoga, philosophy, and other paths. With all this information, Bhagavan became like a university of philosophy. This was just as well, for he was soon to meet and compare notes with intellectuals like Ganapati Muni, a scholar well versed in the Vedas. He was also to meet learned men of other nations and religions such as Paul Brunton, Frank Humphreys, and Dr. Hafiz Syed, who was an authority on Islam. Ghambiram Seshayya served as a means of helping Bhagavan fulfill this function. Ghambiram Seshayya was also instrumental in making the content of those slips of paper and notebooks, with his questions and Bhagavan's answers, available for future devotees, and they were eventually published as the Vichara Sangraha, the first book on the teachings of Bhagavan in Tamil. It was later translated into English, entitled The Catechism of Inquiry, and afterwards the title was changed to simply Self-Inquiry.